In Season 3, Episode 2 of Invincible, we see a face-off between what may be Earth's two most dangerous defenders. In one corner we have Mark Grayson, aka, and then I do the little Invincible meme. I'm not about to do the little Invincible meme, that shit is way too overplayed on this damn website. But in one corner we have Mark, a young adult superhero who has access to unfathomable power thanks to his half Viltrumite, half human physiology. And in the other corner we have Cecil Stedman, the director of the Global Defense Agency, who is similarly, well, far less if we're being honest, but who is also dangerous thanks to his seemingly unlimited supply of government resources, paired with his tactical and sometimes ruthless dedication to defending humanity from whatever it is that may be threatening its existence at any given moment, whether that be aliens from space, aliens from under the sea, aliens from underground, or even half aliens from the surface of the planet with hot moms. Obviously, I'm talking about Mark. Or maybe Trunks, I don't know. Now, before we get into the conflict between Mark and Cecil, I actually think that it's necessary that we characterize this conflict, right? Because from my personal observation, aka scrolling through Twitter and Reddit like a dork-ass nigga, but from my personal observation, there seems to be two separate arguments going on that kinda merge into one larger philosophical debate. The first argument basically mirrors the argument that Mark and Cecil were having in-universe. Is Cecil justified in working with D.A. Sinclair and Darkwing, despite them being murderous tweakers? The second argument, and I think the far more interesting argument from a meta perspective, is the argument about Cecil's actions towards Mark when it comes to like the White Room and the implant, as well as Mark's actions towards Cecil when it comes to like choke slamming the shit out of that nigga and basically threatening his life. Now, like I said earlier, if you look at how this discourse is playing out online, you're gonna see different people tackling different arguments. Some people may be trying to defend Cecil for redeeming Darkwing, others may be trying to defend Mark, superhero by the way, for big bodying a senior citizen, but regardless of which particular argument is going down, they all kind of point toward one larger question: how far is too far? Now look, I'm gonna just put my cards on the table straight up off the rip like my name is Yugi Moto, okay? I'm here to defend Cecil. I'm not here to really provide a balanced perspective on both sides and examine the nuances of nah. It's Big Cecil, alright? Obviously, I will entertain Mark's side of the argument so that I can better bolster my own argument, you know, have a more thorough argument. But make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, you've seen the title. This is a Cecil Glaze video. Now obviously, you know, having a little machine in your brain that plays death frequencies into your eardrums isn't great. I think that goes without saying, but on the flip side, having these Raycon earbuds in your ear playing your favorite song or audiobook or podcast, I think that's something we can all get behind. Take it away, sponsor Teddy. This video is sponsored by Raycon, and for a moment I want to talk about these earbuds that Raycon was kind enough to send me, the Raycon Everyday Earbuds. The Raycon Everyday Earbuds are perfect for whatever it is you might be doing on a day-to-day basis, whether that's school, work, going to the gym, fighting demons, whatever that may be. Personally, I use these earbuds for going on walks since like that's my main method of physical activity throughout the day, but I also run tested them right, gave my head a bunch of shaking and stuff to make sure they didn't fall out, and yeah, they stayed in perfectly fine. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these earbuds come pre-installed with noise canceling technology. That's actually why I'm taking them out, so that I can hear myself record. But the great thing about these earbuds in particular is that they don't do so at the cost of affordability. In other words, these earbuds that you're looking at in my hand right now are like half the price of other earbuds on the market with similar technology. On top of just being way more affordable, the everyday earbuds are also way more convenient than other buds on the market, thanks to features like the 32-hour battery life, or my personal favorite feature, multi-point connectivity, which allows you to connect these earbuds to multiple devices at once. And so, you know, let's say I want to switch from my phone, you know, because I'm on a walk, to my computer because I'm editing, back to my phone. I don't have to, you know, do all that annoying connecting and disconnecting and reconnecting Bluetooth stuff. Y'all know what I'm talking about, bro. Like, no one's trying to do all that. The everyday earbuds come in a variety of different color customizations that you can mix and match to your liking. So like me personally, I picked the black earbuds, but I chose this case that's like this cool little anime cell shaded cloud case. I don't know if you can see it. Let me get a little closer. You know, it's pretty nice, pretty nice. But again, if this isn't your particular style of case or you want a different color earbud, this is just one of countless different customization options that you can choose to put your everyday earbuds in. If you want to get your hands, or I guess in this case, your ears on your own pair of everyday earbuds, go to buyraycon.com/slump to get up to 20% off site-wide. That's right, you get up to 20% off the entire website, including 20% off all headphones too when you go to buyraycon.com/slump. Thank you again to Raycon for sponsoring this video and for sending me these earbuds. And now, back to the video. Just about every superhero universe to ever drop ever has some sort of exploration into this idea of regulating superheroes. Series like Invincible, My Hero Academia, One Punch Man, and the Civil War storyline in the Marvel Universe all explore various degrees of government oversight over superheroes. Some of these systems being more successful than others in terms of, you know, not pumping out fascists. The Injustice storyline in the DC universe pretty famously explores what happens when the super-ist hero says, "Fuck you niggas." I don't know if I could do that on YouTube. I'm not gonna risk it. What happened when the super-ist hero says, "Fuck you niggas, I am regulation." Keep that Injustice storyline in mind, by the way. I may or may not reference it later as like anti-Mark propaganda. I don't know. We'll see if we get there. I think in general, like most political or philosophical issues, there is no one-size-fits-all solution to regulating superheroes, right? With any system, there will always be a blind spot that needs to be dealt with, or a rogue that goes outside the system, and I mean, that's probably why this trope is so popular in the first place, because there's so many different ways to rehash this same idea by just swapping in a new set of nuances. Invincible as a universe is interesting to me, because if you have fully regulated superheroics on one end of the spectrum, you know, series like My Hero, where they're literally tracking you and your abilities from kindergarten through high school and beyond if you end up becoming a hero. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have, you know, like the American classic vigilante heroism, just private citizens doing their thing while going off morality and vibes. Invincible is almost like at a perfect median between these 2 points, right? They have this big governing body through the Global Defense Force that governs and assists heroes who are also private citizens that have secret identities and personal lives and personal interests. It's a very interesting middle of the road take on this whole idea of superhero regulation, and I think that sort of universe being the backdrop for the conversation lends itself to the sort of debate that we're going to be yapping about today. I want to divide the rest of this video into 3 main sections so that I have a way to group all of my semi-unorganized ideas into neat little consumable boxes that make sense for y'all as viewers. And so to start off, I want to do a brief recap of the situation at hand, just so that, you know, we're all going into this knowing what happened. It's to pad the video for watch time. And then after our little recap segment, I want to try to answer the question of the day, how far is too far, by looking at Mark and Cecil and explaining where they may or may not have gone too far during the little skirmish between the two of them. So let's start off by taking things back a bit, way back to Doc Seismic and that whole ordeal that went down with him. Basically, to make a long story short, a supervillain named Doc Seismic has teamed up with these giant underground alien centipedes in order to catch all of the heroes in the United States lacking. And despite being a weak ass bum on his own, with the help of his extraterrestrial, or actually I don't know, what would you call aliens from underground, like subterrestrial? But basically, with the help of his subterrestrial homies, Doc Seismic is able to punch way above his weight class, and he basically captures all of the supers in the US at once so that he can like drop big rocks on them or something. I don't know. The plan was kinda dumb, I'm not gonna lie. Now, despite the plan itself being fucking stupid, the execution of this plan was almost flawless, right? No thanks to Doc, the aliens definitely carried, but Doc Seismic and the centipedes end up successfully capturing all of the heroes in America, which was a surprisingly sparse amount. Like, I don't know if I was the only one who was kinda surprised seeing how few superheroes there was when they were all grouped together. But anyway, they capture all of the heroes in America, with the exception of 2 heroes, Adam, Eve, and Invincible, both of whom were together up in a treehouse somewhere, flirting or, you know, failing to do so, I suppose. Adam, Eve, and Invincible attempt to save their colleagues. However, as per usual, they get smoked because apparently Mark Grayson can only lock in when it comes to choke slamming AARP members into concrete walls. But anywho, in an effort not to lose every superhero on his roster to fucking Doc Seismic weird ass, Cecil deploys Darkwing and a bunch of Reanimen as reinforcements to free the heroes and turn the tides of this battle in the heroes' favor. Now, Mark has personal beef with both Darkwing and the creator of the Reanimen, 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠 Sinclair, and so when he realizes that Cecil put these niggas on payroll instead of a prison cell, he is, understandably, to be fair, very unhappy. He decides he's going to take this issue up with Cecil himself, despite both Adam, Eve, and another hero named Immortal warning him that he probably shouldn't do so in the emotional state that he's in. But you know, since Mark Grayson does what Mark Grayson wants, he basically says, nah, fuck all that, I'm gonna go talk to Cecil right now, and he goes up to the Pentagon to, well, talk to Cecil right now. Mark enters Cecil's office by slamming his hands on the man's desk and demanding to know why Cecil is working with 𝙏𝙖𝙡 Sinclair and Darkwing despite them being murderers. Cecil, very calmly, might I add, explains his reasoning, saying that he believes that the two of them are better off using their gifts to recompense on the side of good, as opposed to rotting away in a prison cell somewhere. Mark disagrees, rather vehemently, to the point where he's yelling, and when Cecil brings up the fact that Mark is also technically a murderer after the Angstrom-Levy incident, Mark claims that that incident was quote-unquote different, before quickly brushing off the entire argument and going back to complaining about Sinclair and Darkwing, setting the ultimatum that he wasn't leaving the Pentagon until something was done about those two. Cecil, still pretty level-headed, at least outwardly, ends up leading Mark into a room that he had specifically built as an anti-Mark measure, which admittedly sounds crazy at first, but the room soon proves itself rather useful as Mark starts escalating from verbal threats to beating up robots to ultimately charging at Cecil head on. The moment he gets charged, Cecil activates his silver bullet, a radio transmitter that he secretly had surgically implanted into Mark's inner ear that would essentially paralyze him on the spot through the use of like these high power sound frequencies. I'm not gonna lie, it looks pretty brutal, especially considering the fact that it's literally coming from inside of Mark's head. And so naturally, the splitting pain paired with the pure invasiveness and breach of trust of this whole ordeal sends Mark into an even deeper fit of rage, and he ends up flying off until he eventually has a crash landing into the Guardians of the Globe HQ, thanks to Cecil following him with his teleportation and activating the radio transmitter once again. Fast forwarding a little bit now for the sake of time, Cecil pulls up at the Guardians HQ with some more Reanimen. Mark is still paralyzed because of the transmitter blowing his eardrums out, but fortunately for Mark, the Guardians of the Globe, many of which, seeing Mark as a valued comrade, come to his defense and start fighting to disarm Cecil, or at the very least destroy the Reanimen. The nigga Rexplode does what Rexplode tends to do, aka fuck everything up and make life harder for everybody by destroying the switch to the transmitter while it's still turned on. But once again, Mark gets bailed out by the Guardians of the Globe, particularly Rudy, who's able to leverage his genius intellect to, like, I don't know, hack into the transmitter and shut it down remotely. It's at this point that Mark goes crash mode, right? He quickly destroys all the remaining Reanimen. That's actually harder to say than you'd think. But he quickly destroys all of the remaining Reanimen, which, like, fair, I suppose. But then this whole fight sort of reaches a boiling point when Mark speed blitzes Cecil, choke slams him against the wall, and sets an ultimatum. If Cecil ever comes near him or his loved ones again, he will kill Cecil. Now, if I'm being 100% truthful and honest right now, if I were to take all of Mark's actions out of context and look at them at face value, I understand them. Hell, I can even relate to some of them. I wouldn't let a nigga talk crazy, put shit in my head, and start going around my family either. And on the flip side, if I look at all of Cecil's actions in a context-independent manner, I would go as far as to say I disagree with some of the actions themselves, at least when isolated from the grander narrative. But that's the problem though. You can't just isolate these actions from the context in which they exist. You can't just say transmitter bad, protect family good, because when you do that, you're ignoring everything that's leading each of these respective characters to make the choices that they did, including the power dynamics at play and their own personal morality. So let's start off with the main in-universe argument that started this whole fiasco. Should 𝙏𝙖𝙡 Sinclair have been redeemed by Cecil? Or, you know, to put it back to the how far is too far, did Cecil go too far by trying to redeem these two? Honestly, I think this argument is the most cut and dry in favor of Cecil. Not only do I believe in like rehabilitation and a meta IRL standard, but if Mark's supposedly hardline stance against murder is wobbly enough that he thinks it's okay to hit a collab mission with his mass murderer pops when they were, you know, like trying to save the bug people on that other planet, they got their asses beat, by the way. But if he thinks that's cool, then he should honestly just shut the fuck up about Sinclair and Darkwing. Let's just keep it a full stack right now. And make no mistake, I'm not criticizing him for teaming up with Omni-Man to protect innocent lives. I think that was 100% the right thing to do. But now Cecil does the exact same thing with niggas that committed murder on a far lesser scale than your father in order to protect the protectors of the earth. And now you got something to say about it? No. You can't say working with murderers is too far for you, but not for me. That's not how this works, Marcus, okay? Lock in. But look, for the sake of this video, I'm gonna be generous and say that Mark has the right to stand up for his ideals, no matter how hypocritical, because frankly, he does. Everyone has the right to be a hypocrite, and I think to an extent, we all exercise that right on a daily basis. This, however, brings us to Cecil and his actions, where we once again have to ask the question, did Cecil go too far in the way that he handled Mark? Now, I actually had this debate live with two friends as we were watching the Mark versus Cecil episode in a Discord call. Shout out 𝙏𝙖𝙡𝙠 and intro, and 𝙏𝙖𝙡, I guess, though 𝙏𝙖𝙡 kind of stayed out of it. Anywho, but upon going back and rewatching and further analyzing what really happened in this confrontation, I came to the conclusion that I was right. Nah, but in all seriousness, I came to the conclusion that this question once again has to be split into two sub-questions. One, did Cecil go too far when he bought Mark to the White Room? And two, did Cecil go too far by secretly putting the transmitter in his ear? Now let's start with question one. Did Cecil go too far by bringing Mark into the White Room? No. Absolutely the fuck not. You see, when I had this debate live in the Discord call, I had kind of forgotten what had happened at the end of episode 1, right? Me and my homeboys had like split the episodes up and like we didn't watch them all at once because niggas be busy, and we were also watching Severance. You should watch that, by the way. Very good show. Personally, I think the White Room is justified no matter what because one, you're dealing with a super alien, more on that later, but two, Mark followed him into that room. Cecil told him to stand down on several occasions and he simply did not. Arguably up until the transmitter, Cecil never really jumped Mark with anything that he did not first put in front of Mark's face and say, hey, if you don't chill the fuck out, I am going to use this against you. The crux of the argument in favor of Mark right here is saying that Cecil escalated things by going into the White Room and that Mark just wanted to talk. However, if you go back to the end of episode 1 and watch the actual energy that Mark comes into this nigga's office with, I would argue that Mark 100% escalated this interaction off rip with an implied threat of violence. He walked into this nigga's office, puffing out his chest, yelling, hey, you working with Sinclair? And he slammed his hands against that man's desk, bro. I am a human being. No superpowers. Well, I do have a little bit of one for all in my case, but if I, as a human being in real life, go to another human being's office and slam my hands onto their desk, that is considered an act of violence, or at the very least a threat. There may not be a law saying that's the case, like you're not going to catch a battery charge for slamming a desk, but I dare you to go to your teacher or your boss or your professor or even a colleague and slam your hands on their desk while yelling at them. All right, bro. See how quickly they pack you up, bro. See how quickly they get your black ass up out of there. Or your non-black ass if you're not black. Human to human, that's already considered an act of violence. Let's just keep it a buck right now. But if you take into consideration the power dynamics between these two, which is literally like the coughing baby versus hydrogen bomb meme, I don't understand how people cannot, at the very minimum, see that the White Room was a justified measure to be taken. In fact, I'd argue that Cecil stayed rather poised throughout the whole interaction trying to talk it out with Mark, because let a goddamn Viltrumite teen 𝙏𝙖𝙡 come into my room and slam his hands against my desk, bruh. Y'all gonna have to teleport me to the White Room, bruh. Ain't no walking down the hall and talking, bruh. I'm sorry. Mark is an interesting character because he was born, raised, and socialized as a human being before suddenly, semi-randomly developing powers that could potentially mean the end of civilization if he really wanted it to. Just look at the alternate timelines. This actually makes him a fair bit different than other young planet busters like Superman or, I don't know, Gohan, because he wasn't raised with cognizance of his own abilities. Characters like Superman or Gohan basically knew that they were different from off the rip, right? Or at least starting at a very young age. And so they were able to be socialized in a manner that took their abilities into account. And that's one of the reasons why both of them are able to show such great restraint when constantly dealing with people weaker than them. And I'm mainly talking about Soups at this point, my GOAT. Second GOAT, third goat, fourth goat. Okay, I don't like Soups that much, but I like the new one. I like the new one. What's that? Absolute Superman. He's pretty swaggy. But Superman is able to show such great restraint when constantly dealing with people weaker than him because he's had to do so for his whole life. It's a skill that he's been developing. Basically, when did his powers kick in? When he was like 9 or some shit? 8, 7? Mark, on the other hand, grew up as a human, interacting with other humans, but got God powers at 17, and now boom, 2 years later, I think he still views himself as a human interacting with other humans. And I think people on Team Mark do as well, when really, that's just not the case, right? That's not how the power dynamics work out anymore. When you can lift up an iceberg and fly across the country in 5 minutes, your petty emotional outbursts are rightfully going to be viewed as and dealt with like the catastrophic events that they can be, especially in a post-Omni-Man world. Let's just keep it a buck right now. This brings us home to like the last portion of the argument. Did Cecil go too far when he implanted the transmitter into Mark's dome? Yes, absolutely. No matter how you try to shake it, that is a breach of bodily autonomy, and I can't in good faith come on here and say that that action was right. However, I do think that it was justified. First, let's look at the obvious, right? Let's grab the low-hanging fruit. The way Mark handled the situation, the threats, the choke slam, the tweaking, all of his actions retroactively prove that Cecil had reason to fear his instability. And even though I know you're not supposed to use retroactive justifications when dealing with human-to-human interactions, look bruh, like I said earlier, this isn't a human-to-human interaction anymore. Cecil's job is to protect humanity. Mark, even though his heart is truly in the right place, I believe, has demonstrated time and time again that his emotions will get the best of him. And now, after threatening Cecil, he's demonstrated that he will leverage his power over those weaker than him in order to get his way. Or at the very least, he'll gesture in that direction. He'll pump fake, pretend like he's gonna fuck you up in order to get you to shut the fuck up. If I'm Cecil, and my job is to protect humanity, I'm seeing the unstable concentration of power that is Mark as a liability, especially like I said earlier, in a post-Omni-Man world. And hell yeah, I'm gonna step into desperate, paranoid, underhanded, somewhat invasive territory if it means protecting myself, my loved ones, and the rest of humanity as a whole. All in all, I don't think either of these two went too far, per se. Cecil didn't put an insta-kill bomb in Mark's brain, probably. And Mark didn't kill Cecil when, let's be real, he probably wanted to. They were both acting in protection of what's important to them, and I can't be mad at that. However, what I can be mad at is based on his own idealistic standards that he's willing to hold other people to, Mark is a hypocrite who constantly breaches his own codes when he gets emotional. While Cecil, he basically stays morally consistent through thick and thin, and the show puts it in front of us, front and center. Cecil is not here to be a good guy. He's here to save the world.